I never thought I would end my days at a senior community center, playing bingo and taking watercolor classes. But when you turn 63 and realize you've spent the last 15 years talking more to the mirror than to real people, certain concessions need to be made. It was my daughter Rachel who insisted, "Of course. Mom, you can't spend the rest of your life alone in that house," she said with that mixture of concern and exasperation that only adult daughters master perfectly. So there I was, on a Thursday morning in September, pushing through the door of the Hope Community Center with the same enthusiasm as someone going to the dentist. The place smelled of fresh coffee and something that could be homemade cookies. There was a huge mural on the entrance wall, photographs of residents smiling in various activities. As if trying to prove that life after retirement wasn't the prelude to death I secretly feared. "You must be Margaret." An energetic woman with short white hair and colorful glasses appeared out of nowhere. "I'm Doris, the activities coordinator. We're so happy to have you with us. Today is our community gardening day. Do you like plants?" Before I could invent an excuse to leave, she was already guiding me through a sunlit hallway toward a garden in the back. And it was there, among tomato beds and rows of lavender, that I saw him. He was kneeling beside an herb bed, his hands large, strong, still beautiful, despite age, working the soil with the gentleness of someone praying. He wore a faded flannel shirt and old jeans stained with earth. His hair, once dark brown, was now a dignified silver, and there was a well-trimmed beard he definitely didn't have at 23. But I would have recognized that posture anywhere. The way he tilted his head when he was concentrated. How his shoulders curved slightly forward when working with his hands. Thomas. The name escaped before I could stop it. He looked up. For a moment, only confusion. Then, slow recognition, like dawn spreading across the sky. He stood up slowly, his knees cracked in the process. A cruel reminder of how much time had passed, and wiped his hands on his jeans. "Margaret Lawson." His voice was deeper than I remembered, but it had the same warm quality, like honey in hot tea. "I can't believe it. After all these years, Thompson now." "Well, I went back to Lawson after the divorce. I didn't know why I was giving explanations, offering details of my life like breadcrumbs. Doris brought me to gardening. Thomas comes here every Thursday for 3 years. Doris interjected cheerfully, completely oblivious to the electric tension in the air. "He's our master gardener, keeps this place blooming." "Do you know each other?" "We knew each other," Thomas said softly, his eyes never leaving my face. "A long time ago. How wonderful. Well, I'll let you catch up. Margaret, there are extra gloves on the table if you want to join." Doris walked away cheerfully, leaving us in a silence thick with 40 years of unspoken words. "You look good," Thomas said finally, and there was genuine sincerity in his voice, not just courtesy. "You're lying, but thank you." I forced a laugh. 63 hasn't been kind to me. It's not a lie. You were always beautiful, Margaret. Time has just refined that. He hesitated, then gestured to the bed next to his. "Would you like to help me with the mint? It's overgrowing." I should have refused. Should have made some polite excuse and left. Instead, I found myself grabbing a pair of gloves and kneeling beside him, my knees protesting as much as his had protested. We worked in silence for a few minutes, the only sounds our hands in the soil and birds singing in nearby trees. It was strange and familiar at the same time, like putting on an old coat and discovering it still fits, just in different ways. "How long has it been?" Thomas asked, his voice too casual. 41 years, 4 months, 16 days. The words came out automatically, and I froze, mortified at having kept count so precisely. He stopped working, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. You remember, how could I forget? I kept my eyes on the plants. The day I chose safety over love. The day I broke my own heart and yours. Margaret, my father was right, you know. The words began to pour like a broken dam. Richard had a stable future, a good family, prospects. You were a poor artist with dreams of Paris and no real plan. Dad said love doesn't pay bills, and I believed him. I finally faced him. And then I spent 37 years in a passionless marriage, always wondering what it would have been like if I'd been brave enough to choose you. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, then sat on the grass, indicating for me to do the same. I obeyed, and there we sat, two elderly people covered in dirt, surrounded by fragrant herbs and the weight of decades. I went to Paris anyway, he said quietly. 3 months after you married Richard. I stayed there for 7 years, painting, starving, living in tiny attics. It was everything I'd dreamed of and absolutely miserable because you weren't there to share it. Did you marry? I had to ask. For 22 years, Claire was French, a violinist. She was kind, talented, patient with my artistic moods. He plucked a piece of grass. But she wasn't, you. And she knew. In the end, before cancer took her, she told me it had been a good life, but she'd always known my heart was partly elsewhere. Guilt hit me like a punch to the stomach. Thomas, I'm sorry, don't. He held my hand, and the touch was electric even through the gardening gloves. Don't apologize for my life. I loved Claire. Not the way I loved you, but truly, deeply. We had a son, Daniel, who is my greatest pride. I traveled the world, saw my paintings in galleries. I lived. But you were unhappy. I had moments of unhappiness. Like everyone. He squeezed my hand before releasing it. But I also had joy, purpose, meaning, and you. Was your marriage really that bad? I thought about Richard Formal. Predictable Richard who never made me laugh until I cried or kissed me in the rain or stayed up all night talking about the meaning of life. But who worked hard, was faithful, was a good father to Rachel, held me when my mother died. It wasn't bad, I admitted. It was just, safe. Predictable. No highs or lows, just a straight line of decades. We divorced 8 years ago, when Rachel left home. No drama, no anger, just two strangers realizing they no longer had a reason to pretend. Did you regret leaving me? The question was asked softly, but I felt its weight. I looked at my hands, agispotted, with prominent veins, so different from the young, smooth hands that had held his in farewell 41 years ago. Every day, I whispered, I regretted it every day. And I hated myself for it. Why? Because I had made my choice. Because regret felt like a betrayal to Richard, to Rachel, to the life I'd built. Because my voice broke. Because how could I forgive myself for being so cowardly? Thomas was quiet for a long moment, then pointed to a nearby bed of roses. See those roses? I planted them on my first day here. They died completely in the first winter early frost. They weren't prepared. I cut them down to the ground, thinking they were total losses, and, in spring, they came back. Not the same, but stronger. The roots had deepened during that difficult winter. He faced me. We're like those roses, Margaret. The choices we made, the difficult seasons we endured, they deepened our roots. We're not the same people we were then, and that's not something to mourn, but I wasted so much time. You raised a daughter, built a life, learned lessons that only come through living. His voice was firm but gentle. It wasn't waste, Margaret, it was your path. Tears began rolling down my face, stairs I'd held for 41 years, for months, and 16 days. I should have fought for you. Should have been brave, and I should have fought harder for you. Should have proved to your father that love and dreams are worth as much as security." He wiped my tears with his dirt-stained thumb. But we were in our 20s, scared, trying to figure out who we were. Maybe we weren't ready for each other then. And now? The words came out before I could stop them. Thomas smiled, that slow, thoughtful smile that used to make my heart race. It still did. Now we're two people who've lived full lives, who loved others, raised children, buried spouses, carried regrets, who finally learned that forgiving ourselves isn't erasing the past, but accepting that we did the best we could with who we were then. "Do you forgive me?" I needed to hear it. "There's nothing to forgive, Margaret. You made the choice that made sense for you at that moment. But the real question is, can you forgive yourself?" I looked around, the garden, flowers blooming, herbs growing wild, tomatoes ripening on the vine. All of this existed because someone had planted seeds, cared for them, let time do its work. Maybe hearts were like that too. "I want to learn," I said quietly. "Will you teach me? Gardening or forgiveness?" There was humor in his voice. "Both. Everything." I faced him directly. "Thomas, I don't know what this is or what it can be. We're elderly, with full and complicated lives. But I know I can't spend the rest of my days punishing myself for choices made by a girl I'm no longer." "Then don't." He stood up, offering his hand to help me. "Come here every Thursday. We'll plant things together, watch them grow. And maybe, in the process, you'll learn it's never too late for new beginnings." "Just gardening?" I asked, taking his hand. "To start." His eyes sparkled. "But there are also watercolor classes on Tuesdays. I teach. You always said you wanted to learn to paint. You remember that?" "I remember everything, Margaret. Every conversation, every shared dream, every promise." He didn't release my hand. "But I've also learned that memories are foundations, not prisons. We build on them, not get trapped in them." In the weeks that followed, Thursday became my favorite day. I'd arrive early, find Thomas already working the soil, and we'd settle into a comfortable rhythm of working side by side. We talked about everything, our past lives without bitterness, our children with pride, our regrets with growing acceptance. "Rachel is worried about me," I said one morning while pruning rose bushes. "She thinks I'm clinging to the past by spending time with you." "And are you?" I considered it. "No. I'm finally letting go. There's a difference." "Wise woman." Thomas cut a dead branch. "Daniel is coming to visit me next month. I'd love for you to meet him." "You told him about me." I told him about the woman I once loved and am now getting to know again as a friend. He looked at me. "That's what we are, isn't it, friends?" "We are," I agreed, but there was an unasked question hanging between us. In Tuesday's watercolor classes, I discovered I had zero talent for painting. My trees looked like sad broccoli, my people like deformed stick figures. But Thomas was patient, standing behind me, guiding my hand, and those moments his warmth close to me. His soft breathing in my ear as he explained shading were more precious than any masterpiece. "You're loosening up," he observed one afternoon, studying my latest attempt to paint the garden. "It's horrible. It's free. No perfection, no stiffness. Just you expressing what you see." He turned to face me. "You're different, Margaret, lighter." He was right. The tension lines around my eyes had softened. I laughed more, slept better, woke up excited about something beyond routine, and I realized it wasn't about Thomas, not really. It was about finally making peace with my own story. One day, 6 months after our reunion, we were sitting on the garden bench, watching the sunset paint the sky pink and gold. Fall had turned to winter, and now it was early spring hour. garden was just beginning to wake from its sleep. "I've forgiven myself," I said suddenly. Thomas turned to me, eyebrows raised. "Oh, the girl who chose safety, who listened to her father instead of her heart, who married the wrong man for the wrong reasons." I took a deep breath. She was scared and did the best she could. She gave me Rachel, who is my greatest gift. She gave me decades of lessons about courage learned too late. And eventually, she brought me back here. To you. To this. To this. Thomas repeated softly. "And what is this, exactly?" I looked at our hands, his, still strong and paint-stained, mine marked by time but no longer trembling with regret. Slowly, I intertwined my fingers with his. "This is two people who took the long way, who loved others, lost others, learned who they are, who are no longer children playing at romance, but adults who understand that love isn't just passion, it's also companionship, respect, choice." I met his eyes. "It's second chances, not to rewrite the past, but to write a new future. And what future do you imagine?" There was cautious hope in his voice. "One where I go to your Tuesday classes and you come to my Thursday night book club, where we meet each other's children and maybe, eventually, make them roll their eyes at how silly two old people can be together." I smiled. "One where we have slow breakfasts and visit museums and sit in comfortable silence, where we don't try to recover what we lost, but appreciate what we found." Thomas was quiet for so long I feared I'd said too much, assumed too much. Then he raised our joined hands, kissing my fingers gently. "Margaret Lawson, it took us 41 years to get here. I won't waste another moment." He turned his body to face me completely. "I would very much like to be your companion in this new chapter. Not to recreate what we were, but to discover who we can become. Even though I'm terrible at painting. Especially because you're terrible at painting. Keeps me humble." I laughed, that deep, genuine laugh that had been a stranger for so many years. And then I did something the 23-year-old girl would have been too scared to do. I leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't the burning kiss of youth. It was sweeter, slower, laden with patience, earned through decades of waiting. It was the promise, not of perfect passion, but of true companionship. It was forgiveness transformed into gratitude. When we pulled apart, Thomas was smiling, that smile I'd carried in memory for 4 decades and could now see every day. "The roses came back," he said, pointing to the bed he'd shown me on our first day, and he was right. After their winter of apparent death, they had sprouted again, not the same as they were, but stronger, more deeply rooted, more resilient, like us. "Second springs," I murmured. "Second springs," he agreed. "And this one, my dear Margaret, we're going to enjoy fully." We sat there as twilight deepened, hands joined, surrounded by a garden that proved that even after the harshest winters, new and beautiful things can grow. And I understood finally. Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about making peace with it so the present can flourish. It had taken me 41 years, 4 months, and 16 days to learn that lesson. But as I sat there with Thomas, watching the first stars appear, I knew that every moment of that long road had been worth it, because it led me here. To this bench. To this man. To this version of me who finally, was at peace.